Jean-Baptiste Gallopin is a sociologist and researcher focusing on Sudan, and he joins us now from Berlin. Thanks very much for your time. Let's just begin talking, in fact, about the talk and who and when the TMC have already deported political leaders, killed others via their proxies, the RSF. I mean, trust in these talks will be a major issue if there's going to be any breakthrough towards a transfer of power.
Yeah, I think first it's important to bear in mind that there are some contrasting signals coming from the opposition today, since a spokesperson for the SPA, the Sudan Professionals Association, actually denied that the Forces of Freedom of Change were going to join the talks. They simply announced, in his words, a suspension of the civil disobedience campaign as a way of allowing people to make a living again for a few days and to the opposition to regroup and plan another episode. Now, it's a very complicated situation for the opposition because despite the massacre last week, there doesn't seem to have been any pressure on the Transitional Military Council to resign. And the mediation appears to be focusing on getting the opposition and the Transitional Military Council to resume negotiations from where they had ended before the massacre happened, as if nothing happened. But it's a little baffling to imagine a negotiation where one side is pointing a gun to the other side, and to expect concessions from both sides in such a configuration.
Indeed, so you talk about the mediation. That's very interesting because, of course, the Ethiopians perhaps managed to achieve something today when we actually thought their mediation efforts had failed over the weekend, or certainly late last week. And then we had the arrest and deportation of several opposition politicians who were then sent to South Sudan. So that bit is also very confusing. What do you make of all of that in terms of the much bigger picture of trying to get all of these sides to sit down together?
Well, I mean, I think there are obviously complex politics unfolding because the opposition is made up of many groups. Which have their own different agendas and perceptions of what should be done. Some of these groups have actually visited the UAE, so they are subject to the influence of the UAE, just like the Transitional Military Council is. Obviously, it's different kind of influence, but they are subject to a kind of foreign influence. There's also different agendas from competing regional powers. So the reasons for why these negotiations are send confusing signals is because of the situation itself is complex. But the stakes are pretty simple, actually. The question is whether the Transitional Military Council will agree to handing over power to civilians. And from this perspective, there's really no sign that the TMC is willing to agree to that. Now, there's been some reports in recent days that the motivation for clearing the sit-in was actually that some members of the Transitional Military Council thought the state of the negotiation was actually going to lead to a deal which would be beneficial to civilians, in which they would actually lose control. So I think from this standpoint, you can wonder whether the TMC is going to agree to a deal along these lines now. So I think this is a very bad start for the negotiations. Okay. And although we can imagine that a deal could happen if some members of the opposition join decide to join a deal with the TMC. Okay. I think this could open important rifts within the opposition because people are angry at the military council, and they will not understand a deal in which Burhan and Hemeti are still, calling the shots.
Well, we shall see what does happen. For the moment, Monsieur Gallopin, thanks for joining us from Berlin.